Well, welcome to Click for Biology. We're studying ecology, which of course means that we're studying ecosystems. Ecosystems can be defined as communities of populations in a habitat. So let's take a closer look at that structure. Welcome to Click for Biology. We're looking at ecology, and of course, ecology is the study of ecosystems, and in turn, ecosystems can be described as being the communities of populations in a habitat. But let's take a closer look at that structure. There's a copy of this presentation, a PDF, in the description below. You can download that and annotate with your own notes so that you have a record of this part of the course. So let's take a look at this ecosystem structure. So ecologists, when they're studying an ecosystem, the first thing that they would do is to have in mind that the ecosystem has two components. There's the community and there's the habitat. Now, the word habitat actually refers to the abiotic factors, or if you prefer, physical aspects of the location. So to give this some kind of context, there could be a record of the annual rainfall, or we could have a record of annual temperatures or humidity. Any physical factor that can be measured can be part of the habitat description. Now, in addition to this, our definition of the abiotic might also include the location on a geographic scale. So that would be done in terms of latitude and longitude. And so in this image here, we have a tropical rainfall forest. And so that's in the equatorial regions. And so we could define the latitude and the longitude of that as part of our abiotic description. And similarly, with the desert, we could locate the desert in terms of its latitude and longitude, and that would give a precise understanding of the habitat location. In another direction, ecologists will often study smaller structures, such as this pond here. And whilst latitude and longitude will have an influence, it would be more appropriate to describe that in terms of the local area in which the pond is found. So that's the physical description, which is the habitat part. Now, the word community is divisible into three components. And when you see the word ecosystem, one should always translate that into a community plus the habitat. So we've dealt with habitat. But what does community mean? Well, a community is made up of different species. Now, there are many different ways to define species, but here we're going to be using the BSC, which is called the biological species concept. And this tells us that to be a member of a species, then you have to be able to reproduce and reproduce fertile offspring. And in that way, the group of organisms that we're calling a species, they are isolated from other species. We call that reproductive isolation. And so giraffes will give birth to giraffes. Hippopotamus will give birth to hippopotamus. A hornbill will give birth to hornbills, but they don't breed with each other. And even when you do get species, more closely related species breeding, their offspring are generally infertile. So we have our species, and we can, within a tropical rainforest or a pond or a desert, we could write a list of the species. So that's a beginning. Now, in addition to listing the species, which are there, we can also count them, which is to say the population. So if we were studying the Serengeti grasslands and we were looking at giraffes, the giraffe would be our species. And then we would have to carry out some kind of surveying technique which would allow us to count the number of giraffes or estimate the number of giraffes, and that would be a population. If we then switched to the zebra, we would then have a zebra count, and that would be our zebra population. So our community is made up of species, populations of those species, and then most importantly, ecologists discuss how those species and their populations interact with each other, how they compete with each other for resources, the idea of predation, predator and prey, herbivory, those are the animals which eat plants, parasitism, that's when an organism lives on another organism and benefiting from that relationship, but the host does not benefit. Some species interact with each other in a beneficial way, and we would call that mutualism. Pathogenicity is where some organisms have the capacity to cause disease. So these are different ways in which organisms can interact with each other. So in an ecosystem, we would first describe the habitat with the physical factors. Then we would make a species list. Then we would count those species, the populations of each species, and then we would describe the interaction in terms of some of these factors which are shown here. And that's what we're going to be doing in the next few videos and parts of this course. Just before we leave this, notice that most of these factors of interaction relate to some aspect of feeding. Okay, so an ecosystem is the community plus the habitat. So you can, in a moment, pause your video and then try these 4 questions. Should be pretty quick. Should be able to do those in 3 minutes. And when complete, you can go down and check the answers in the description of the video, where you will also find the link to the PDF. And appearing on the page now is a chance to subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up, please. And here are the links to the playlist and the next relevant video.